listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Eddie Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We have a multi-part series I'm excited to share about some short-term volunteers, short-term missionaries who have served in a very unique way. It's kind of the season to get to share. We get to talk about these missionaries who are serving in agricultural consultancy. We also have music specialist conversation here on the Coffee Hour as well. So today we're focusing on the agricultural consultancy in East Africa. Really excited to share that story. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us by phone, Dr. Jacque Breman, volunteer with the LCMS International Mission, serving with the agricultural consultancy in East Africa. Dr. Breman, thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about your interest and experience in agricultural consultancy.
Okay, the interest and experience goes hand in hand. I grew up in South America, Bolivia and Colombia. As a missionary kid, my parents were missionaries down there for 20 years. So much of the agriculture comes naturally to me. We would have devotions and go outside and swing a machete and clear land and use hoes, very, very similar to East Africa in the remote villages right now. And my interest, I'm a retired emeritus from the University of Florida, which has an emphasis on subtropical and tropical agriculture, especially in the southern part. And I worked with farmers for 32 years, building up organic matter, applying fertilizers correctly, and controlling pests, the three tenets of what we teach in East Africa, so that families and pastors can feed their families.
Why is doing something like this important to be able to share on the mission field?
Well, to answer your question of why this is important to share on the mission field, the Great Commission is to spread the gospel, right? And the good Lord had acts of compassion to follow that. And if we follow James says, you talk about your faith, I'll show you my faith by what I do. So we need to have some compassion with us when we help local pastors and lay people spread the gospel, don't we?
Absolutely.
Indeed.
So, yes. And so, Paul made tents. We just show them some of the things that they can do with local resources to better feed their families. Both pastors to become self-sufficient because they're not salaried, and for all the congregational members. And so we teach right there in the churches, usually after a service.
So taking this interest onto the mission field, tell us about your journey to becoming a short-term missionary with the LCMS.
Okay, it's an interesting journey. I was recruited by Delano and Linda Meyer, who are retired missionaries from West Africa, and were visionaries and formed the Ag Consultancy for East Africa after they retired and had been volunteering for 11 years. And they recruited me. We visited for a little bit, and the next thing I knew, I was getting visas for East Africa and submitting a formal volunteer request to St. Louis.
So what are the goals of agricultural consultancy for East Africa? And then we'll dig into how you've seen those in action in your work.
The goals for ag consultancy in East Africa are, number one, of course, is spread the gospel, the good news, salvation through Jesus Christ, not through works. And we operate in a Muslim area in East Africa, and many of the new converts to Christianity are from the Muslim faith. It's tremendous. So we're following the Great Commission, number one, spreading the gospel with the local pastors. Number two, we're training these church members and pastors and lay people in basic solutions for some local problems. Number three, we're building the good relations between LCMS missionaries, because we work directly under them in East Africa and alongside them. And building those relationships with the local church diocese, the Lutheran Church diocese in East Africa, whether it's Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, wherever we're placed.
Share with us a story or two from your involvement there, from your time serving with Agricultural Consultancy for East Africa, that that helps us understand or see these goals, working toward these goals.
I'd love to share a story. Let's share a story on number one, spreading the gospel. I was with Delano and Linda. We were working together in Malawi, in southern Malawi. And southern Malawi is largely Muslim. And we were privileged to assist the local pastor and the chair of the Synod of Malawi, Confessional Lutheran Synod there, Reverend Woa. Delano was holding a basin of brown river water, and I was assisting with communion. And we were looking at a line of 27 people being baptized. Wow. 27 people being baptized. If you can imagine that, not just young children, older children, women, men, just a line of people standing in a row to be baptized. That gives you an idea of the power of the gospel.
Wow. Yeah, that is incredible.
Mainly they were Muslim. Mainly they were Muslim. This is very biblical. When a family decides to become Christian, the head of the household is the man, and it's almost like Joshua. But for me and my family, we will serve the Lord.
Absolutely.
So it's a whole family that's baptized. This little church, now just following up, this little church, 4 years ago, I was there in my first journey. And Reverend Wallace said, Jacque, let's not talk about how to grow maize right now. Look behind you. And there are about 25 women sitting on the ground under this mango tree where we were teaching, and they were Muslim. And from that little church, now they have 350 members. 350 members.
Wow.
And a large proportion are Muslim. So this is the story of number one.
Wow. Share a few more stories. It's so fascinating about the other goals of the Agricultural Consultancy.
I'd love to. Number two, training church members how to better feed their families. What we try to do in Ag Consultancy is train the trainers. That means a key person, a lay leader in the church, or pastor, whoever is pointed out in that village or community as the trainer leader. And when we go through a whole 2 days of training, we certify that person. Well, and here's the story. 2 years later, Reverend Wallace sent me an email telling me about a layperson going out in the community and showing the local people how to feed themselves and control pests like armyworms and so forth. And that person was saying, look, our government extension people couldn't help us, but this church, this Lutheran church here, sends out members to show people how to better feed their families. I think that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about the partners with whom you get to serve. As you mentioned, you're serving alongside LCMS missionaries and the local church as well. What was it like getting to interact with, to meet the missionaries as well as the local pastors?
We work with the volunteer coordinator, LCMS volunteer coordinator out of Office of International Missions in Nairobi. And when we have a new team that are learning the ropes, she will accompany us for 2 or 3 days and make sure that the new team has got their feet on the ground. And then someone that's experienced, like Delano or Linda or myself, will take it from there. And we live at the level of the people that we are serving. I hope that, let me elaborate a little bit. if in the really remote villages, they'll be cooking over 3 stones and a twig fire outside the church while we're teaching. They don't eat any lunch. They only eat 2 meals a day. So the pastor will have service, and I'm explaining, what it means to walk alongside. And we follow the local customs as much as possible to fit into their culture as much as possible. And in one very remote area, I remember the smoke was coming in through the windows. It's not air conditioned; it's open. And about 4:30 in the afternoon, we were through teaching, and they said, "Please stay with us and eat with us. We would be honored," right? Mm-hmm. And so they drew water from the creek, and we washed our hands with that water, and we sat down and ate with our right hands. They don't have utensils. We fit right in with that culture, and had some tea and ate the maize and the greens and chicken just right along with everybody else. That's walking beside them. In one place it was so remote, we had to leave the 4-wheel drive vehicle behind, and we went to the church itself, about a half-mile walk. I hope that illustrates a little bit what it means to walk alongside them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're just about out of time. We have a few more stories to share with some of the other volunteers, short-term missionaries who have served with Agricultural Consultancy as well. Dr. Breman, thank you so much for being our guest, and God's blessings on future work with Agricultural Consultancy as well. Thanks for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today.
Thank you, and you're very welcome for this time.
More to come. Mm-hmm. Stick around to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.